welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how you cannot do that, but instead can do other stuff. Maybe more meaningful stuff, maybe stuff that's a little bit more fun for you. And I say that I don't always mention fun as part of that intro, but I really want to today, because today we are talking about muchness. And it's one of my favorite phrases, and it's something that JenLyn has kind of like taken and run with from a whole branding perspective. But for me, the point is that I think a lot of us have been told that we're too much something, or we've also been trained not to be too much something. Yes. So like both of those inputs have created this perception of muchness that generally goes into the unsafe category. Yes. And then if that's going into an unsafe category from a human experience perspective, it's not super surprising that then doesn't manifest in a business perspective either, because we've already convinced ourselves that is unsafe. Right. And so today we are going to have an exploratory conversation about this concept of muchness, maybe where it's gotten a bad rap, and maybe how we can harness our muchness into some really meaningful stuff from a business point of view. And you guys know the show is about marketing. So like specifically, we're going to talk about marketing related things. But when we are also talking about incorporating these types of ideas into your business, I will tell you this for sure. If you incorporate muchness just into your advertising and not into the rest of how you do business, not going to work for you. No. So it is about a holistic approach to muchness that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm so excited to have my friend JenLyn here to have this conversation with me, because I can't think of anybody else I know who embodies muchness much more than JenLyn. So Jen, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what muchness means to you? Yeah. And then we'll jump right in.
Yeah, my name is JenLyn. UNBN is the acronym of my business, Unique One New Beauty Norm, or New Business Norm, because I'm here to create both, right? And it's, to me, muchness it's all of those pieces, all of those parts of yourself that were not safe. They were the parts that you were asked to cipher down, tuck away, run away and hide from, unacceptable, right? That's not what we do here, kind of thing. And all of those little pieces of ourselves, when we are constantly trying to harness them or keep them tucked away, right? Well, we experience things like imposter syndrome and fatigue, being out of alignment, people not being able to build like trust with you because there's just something off. Well, are you being authentic to yourself? And right. And if you're not, you're not. And people know that, right? You do not have to be an empath or any of those things to know that, right?
A fortune teller.
You don't have to be a fortune teller. It's just, we know, because we can feel that. And so I think that the other part of muchness to me is charismatic and it's magnetic. Much of the time, people say to me, sometimes I don't even know where to look. I don't know where to concentrate. I don't know where to do any of those things. And that's part of the fun. That's part of my muchness, is that I want to draw you in. I want you to see something different every time you look at something. Every time you look at me, I'm a work of art. I want you to see something different. When you look at my background, I want you to see something different every single time that you see it. When you look at my logo, I want you to be drawn in by it, not just be like, oh, there's the logo and I can just, just keep going. No, I want you to feel something, because personally for me, it's about transformation. I want transformative experiences. And that comes through in every single thing that I do.
Yeah. Well, okay. There's like so many directions I want to go with that, but I do want to appreciate that we have a swack of people who are chiming in the chat. So Marissa, Leanna, thank you for joining. We have Crystal, who's commenting on LinkedIn and also watching on YouTube. Impressive.
I love Crystal.
Sharing that I was trained to be reserved, didn't work out for me in business, so I've ditched it. And I think this is what happens to a lot of us. But also, I want to talk about your background. One, because your background is awesome, but also because if this is your first time that you're meeting JenLyn, then the next time you meet JenLyn, there will be a different experience. Yes. I'm like, I think a lot of times people then interpret things like muchness like that. And if I want to tune into my muchness, and that's what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to look like a different outfit every time, and different hair every time, and different background every time. And then people get overwhelmed also by like how much work goes into that. So then they opt out of the whole concept of muchness. But can you talk to us a little bit about like how to tap into your own version of muchness?
Yeah, absolutely. Because for me, it is that every single time you see me, I look different. I'm constantly growing and evolving. So even what I'm doing has slightly shifted every couple of weeks. And it generally stays the same, but I can talk about it in a different way, or I might be concentrated on a different part. So my background, if you go back 15 years as a paramedic firefighter. Right. In between those times, because when I worked as a paramedic, we made like $7 an hour. So we had, I had a day job too. Right. So I had a lot of retail, a lot of management under my belt in that sense. And then now for 9 years, I guess this year, I've been doing business coaching, but I also have a, neuroscience degree, and I am a makeup artist, and I am a fashion designer, and I have all of these different parts. So really simply, it's this. All of your skills, all of your passions, and those things that really just bring you to life and that you're super excited about, you funnel down into a Venn diagram, and what's there in the middle, right? So for me, it was makeup artist, fashion. I'm a human rights activist. It's marketing, it's branding, it's business, it's entrepreneurship, it's human rights, and all of those things. So for me, when I funneled all that into that Venn diagram, and I'm looking at that middle circle, and I'm looking at all of these things that are core to me, how do I wrap around that? How do I wrap around that? And it's avant-garde. Avant-garde is about art, makeup, fashion, human rights, making a statement, pushing boundaries, right? And so I very much so was able to wrap around that. That is my bubble of muchness, and everything that I do is within that bubble. And when I explain it in that way, people understand, oh, that makes a lot of sense, right? And so really we're just pulling it in, and instead of niching down to this one single point, it's a multi-layered niche. And it's more dynamic. It has more flow, right? And so especially what I find for myself as a neurodivergent and working with a lot of neurodivergents is that it helps people be able to not feel as if they're being asked to literally cut a finger off, because it's almost the same for me to be asked to cut out some part of my personality after I fought and clawed my way to confidence to be myself is like, no, I'm never doing that again. Right. And so it just was a system that didn't work for me. And so I did that in branding, and I disrupted, and now I disrupt in marketing, and all of it really is based around this center idea that of and core values, really, right, of ethical trust building in a holistic offering that is a system. And when you put that together, that's ethos. And that's what I create, are ethos systems. It's not just this one little bitty tiny piece that, in a lot of programs that I did in the very beginning, you spent 2 minutes on branding. You're going to get it.
Let's
You're
write
gonna,
down your values. Okay, good, done. On to the next thing.
and you're not even writing down your own values at that point, unless you've done a lot of work and you're into a lot of awareness. At that point, you are writing down Aunt Sarah's, and you don't even know it, right?
And it's not even like holistically Aunt Sarah's. It's like that thing from Aunt Sarah, and that thing from your dad, and that thing from your neighbor you grew up with.
Yeah, because it's like it's just programmed, and it's in part of the program that's playing. And so as you unroll, you can do it that way, but there's a lot of pivoting, and there's a lot of having to go back and redo. And sometimes if we can understand a process, and if we can take the time in the beginning, there's so many benefits to slowing down in that area, specifically of business and in marketing, and of understanding yourself to be able to step into the person that you need to be a good marketer, to be a good entrepreneur, to have success and actually be able to do what it is that you want to long term. So a lot of what I have is removes those barriers, and or we sit with those uncomfortable barriers until we can, move through them and accept and wrap around that it's going to be much more beneficial in the end. It's like trying to clean a closet, and if you go at it and you kind of do this surface thing, it works. But you didn't fix the core needs, and you're going to have to do that 3 and 4 times. And eventually you're going to pull it all out anyways, because that's what needed to happen in the first place. And so if we could just do that, it just fundamentally changes your experience. And more importantly, it changes the experience for who you're attempting to serve.
Well, and I think I often use the analogy of like dumping all the puzzle pieces out on the table, right? Because so like if you're doing a puzzle, what do you do first? You dump all the pieces out. And then what do? You flip over all the pieces so you can see what's on the pieces.
Yeah.
Except we don't do that from a personal way of being point of view. And I think this is really interesting because Joy mentioned in the chat already about being reserved.
Yes.
And I think this concept of being reserved speaks very clearly to me of like reserving part of you for one thing and like not another thing. It has the nature of saying, I am not going to show all of me.
Right. Ever.
Right. And if, I mean, when you think about a like flower that's trying to bloom and you're like, no, don't stop it. Stop growing, right? Like and we're picking petals off of it. Like you would never do that if you were trying to enable the plant to bloom and do everything it would. But we do that for ourselves as people so often. And from a marketing perspective, right? There's also narratives about what is professional on LinkedIn and what is, fill in the gap, right? Like what is professional at your place of business? And then we end up carrying this, I call it corporate trauma. With us, because it's like someone's told me that's what was acceptable there. And then I've taken that and interpreted as that's what's acceptable everywhere. And so I don't even like leave a job and then give myself the space to like express and explore. I like carry these layers of trunks around with me. And at the end of the day, similar to the closet analogy, right? Unless you're going to open that trunk up and be like, what is even in here that I've been carrying around for all of these years that's made it feel really heavy and really difficult to be myself. You're like, oh, wow, that was like that one comment that Aunt Sarah made when I was 8.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, maybe I could let that go. Maybe.
Yes.
And then from a like, because I know I'm sure you get this too, because we're both in the branding arena, right? So people generally show up with a problem. They want to rebrand, or they think their brand is not serving some kind of current capacity. But I think we still are in this zone of like someone else telling us what we should do. Right? So like, oh, all I need to do is change my background and wear blue lipstick and I will have a brand. Like, no, that's not the thing. And until we uncover to the point where we actually know who you are as a person, then from a marketing and branding perspective, like you can do stuff, but it's not meaningful brand building. Because what is it building? It's not building anything.
It's building a straw house or a house of sand, right? Or a leaning tower of Pisa is how I like to talk about it.
Although the leaning tower of Pisa stood for a very long time. So let's say the leaning tower of Pisa of sand.
Yes, of sand that falls over because it's your pillars, it's your foundations, it's the core. And if you don't know that about yourself, you're never going to understand it about who you serve. You're never going to really understand it about anything in your life, right? Like there are 2 things in my life that I discovered, well, 3 things that really uncovered some things for me and grew me like no other. And one of those was traumatic things. One of those was, of course, becoming a mom and being a mom. And the third is absolutely 100% the last 10 years on this journey of entrepreneurism. I understand myself and then therefore humanity on such a deep level now that it's part of why I can be so eclectic and I can be so much of my muchness, because no matter what the outside is saying or what I've shown up as that day, people still feel the authenticity that is just pouring from me because it is still authentically me. And I show up honest and truthful. And if I'm not the person for you, or if what you're doing is not in alignment with me, I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you to walk away from me, and I'm going to tell you even where you can go, because I want you to have success. I want you to have wholeness in your life and happiness and joy. And I want you to be able to experience that, express that in the way that's best and most comfortable for you. I do not speak to pain points. I inspire, right? I inspire. I say, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is where I'm at. And if you think about it and you want to come have a conversation with me, then come have a conversation with me, right? But I don't manipulate or force or try to corral people down a funnel, and or any of those things. Now, that being said, do I use funnels? Absolutely. Right?
And I think this is also like, let's just talk about funnels, because things that I think are poorly understood outside of marketing. Because what a funnel really is the movement of one person from one space to another space.
Right.
And specifically in sales and marketing, we are generally talking about a purchase of some kind as the final destination.
Yes.
But every single relationship that gets built is a funnel of sorts, right? And so one of the things I always find really interesting is that very commonly people will come to me and they're like, well, I don't have a funnel. And I'm like, well, have you sold something? And they're like, oh yeah, then I sell lots of stuff. Okay, then you have a funnel.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It may be a mystery to you about all of the pieces that are making that work, but there is a funnel, right? Like there's movement from one place to another place. And so one of the interesting things you said just now too is that, like, I think, and this depends on, I mean, I would say if you have like a B2B platform and you think that everybody could benefit from using it, project management or whatever, then like you could put a lot of people into a funnel and move a lot of people through the same funnel, which may not work if you're selling Hermes handbags. Right? Because not everybody's going to buy a Hermes handbag, and nor is it made for everybody to buy it. And so, like, from an identity point of view, this is the exact example of why you have to know from an identity, who are you, right? Am I all things to all people, or am I like for the elite? Because if I'm for the elite, I only need to talk to the elite.
Yes.
I could not waste my time with all the people who are buying Walmart handbags. Not saying anything bad about Walmart handbags.
Right. But it's, you know,
it's just not their target audience. And that's something that they've chosen. And and it's something that's interesting about that too, is there's people who would assume like that brands like Hermes or Louis Vuitton are like exclusive, and exclusivity shouldn't exist in humanity, and everybody should have access to the same things, and all of the, and neither of these two things are wrong.
Right.
The reason they work is because they're in alignment.
Yes.
So if you are the type of person who believes that all people should have access to all things, and I don't know how successful you will be selling Hermes handbags.
Right.
But there are people who are in alignment with that who are very successful at doing that. And so, again, it comes back to that there's no right or wrong version of muchness. There's no right or wrong set of values, but it is about having that clarity so that you can execute on a funnel that feels like at each stage of the funnel, bringing it back to funnels, you're doing things that you would do.
Yes.
And again, like,
in a natural,
I have a lot of people who ask me about my funnel because I'm like, I use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my funnel.
Yes.
And people are like, I would like my funnel to be LinkedIn. I will do exactly what you do.
And
good luck with that, because it's not going to work for you.
No, it doesn't.
For me because I am me, and I figured out my way to do it. And it doesn't have to be complex. But you do have to know the steps. You do have to know how you're helping people through to the next stage.
Right.
You have to. So that's where the like systematization of it comes in.
Yes.
But it's not even that. I think too, a lot of times people assume a funnel is one thing. It looks like one thing. I'm supposed to implement exactly what fixed funnels build in their templates, right?
Yeah, right. Like, and you have to do it like exactly like that.
Right.
And tried to do that. Been there, right? Ask us how we
also been there.
Because, right. Because we've been there, and we tried to do that, and we tried to emulate, and we tried to do all the steps and understand that, okay, I've brought them in, the top of the funnel is.
Can I just share this example? Because I think the people in the chat who know me will be surprised by this. So like when I first started my business, I was in this Build Your Business program, and they taught one funnel.
Yes.
And it was Facebook ads to a webinar where you sell people something that closes at midnight tonight.
Yes.
And if so, JenLyn, would you like to guess how effectively I implemented that funnel?
Not well.
Not at all, because I didn't believe in any of the steps
that
were involved in the funnel. And it's not because any of those steps are specifically bad steps. There's lots of people who implement those steps and generate lots of business. But it's because they believe in why they're doing the step, because it matches to who they are as a person.
Absolutely.
And so I just wanted to share that example because I think about it a lot. And and I'm like, if people knew that I ever tried this, they'd be like, why did you ever buy? Why? You should have known that wouldn't work for you. Like, except I didn't until I tried it and it didn't work. And luckily for me, I was like, because I think a lot of times too, then people judge themselves very harshly.
Yes.
Like, there's
Yes.
something wrong with me. I can't execute
Absolutely.
this funnel, right? Like, no, that funnel doesn't match you.
No, right.
So what
Like,
you need, maybe more clarity on who you are, so you can
right.
pick one that will match
That
you, or
matches
create
you.
one that matches
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And that's all.
Which is what I have done, right? Everything
Right.
every program that I ever took gave me the information that I needed to reverse engineer to create what it was that I needed for me. When I take a program, spoiler alert, if you ever find me in your master class or any of those things, I'm there to dissect everything that you're doing. I'm there to dissect it. I'm there doing my market research. Are people still saying the same things? Are they still talking the same bit of information? Right? Is all of these systems what are still being circulated mostly? Yep, sure is. Okay, then I'm just catching to see if there's anything that I've missed for myself. Yesterday, honestly, I put in an application with Forbes Business Council. I do not meet any of their help me out here. Yeah, requirements. I do not meet any of the requirements. But what they did give me was an empty opportunity to say why I should be considered. And I pretty well simply said this: I believe Forbes has always been for disruptors, for innovators, and for visionaries. And I don't check your boxes, and I don't check them because I've redrawn them. And that is why I'm exactly who should be writing in your council.
Maybe somebody, I've done a lot of blog posts that were like giving people the real information. Forbes article. I appreciate Forbes. I also see them as a leader, thought leader, trustworthy resource. Yes. And then also from some perspectives, I'm like, this is out to lunch and somebody needs to talk about it. So yes. I will be the one to talk about it. But this is also interesting too, when you think about the digital experience. And I think there's like, I don't know, I would like to say maybe more permission for people to show their muchness from a digital point of view. Now, maybe that's scarier for some people too, but it's created another platform anyway, in which to show your muchness if maybe your like neighborhood isn't as a safe space for you to show your muchness. But then there's all like really interesting things that happen. I'm going to use a thought leadership example. When LinkedIn it's like collaborative articles.
Yes.
Right. And then I had a friend of mine who had tried to tag me in a collaborative article, but you can't tag people in a collaborative article. Right. Only people who are invited to collaborate get to collaborate. And so I'm like, okay, that's weird, right? Like if someone's built a brand where they're like an expert in that arena, you'd think you'd want them to be invited into the conversation. No? Okay, fine. But like, if he thinks this post is interesting to me, I'll go check it out. I might have something to say. And so I went there and I was like, okay, like I disagreed.
Yeah.
Most of what's here, politely, but I would like to comment. Except I can't comment unless I like the article. And I was like, except I don't like the article. So then I didn't comment, and then I wrote a whole blog post about like what's up with this. But like these are the types of things where also too sometimes we get like programmed into what it looks like to be an expert or show up authentically or any of these things. And that's not when we put on our thinking caps and we're actually just like, is that true? That might be what the algorithm is saying. I'm not going to say it's not what the algorithm is saying, but is that really true about me? Like, am I not a thought leader because LinkedIn won't let me participate in this collaborative article? No.
You're exactly everything that you believe that you are.
And let's dig into that because you also mentioned imposter syndrome as part of your intro. And again, I think this is probably more common knowledge for people who are like in the entrepreneurial space, but I would also encourage larger business owners and marketing teams to look at what you might be experiencing from an imposter syndrome perspective. And so personally, this is what I always say about imposter syndrome, is that so long as you're trying to be someone else, you will feel like an imposter because you are.
Yes.
So it's not a syndrome as much as your behavior isn't what you would do. And therefore, of course, you feel like an imposter because you're being an imposter. It's not what you would do. So like, talk to me a little bit more about your experience in that. And
I think that's exactly that. When you feel like there's two big major messages to me of imposter syndrome. One is that I've somehow stepped out of what is authentic and to me, and what is so it's like a signal for boundaries, right? That I've stepped into this new area. So for one, there's questions I have to ask myself. Am I in an area of growth? Because if I'm in an area of growth, then for a moment, I am going to experience that, because I'm in between two things. I'm in between what I know and what I'm fixing to know, right? And so I'm in this in-between place. And the other part is, I don't, thoughts of I don't have the training, right? I don't have the degree. I shouldn't be here. Everybody else, I don't understand what's being said in this group because the language they're speaking is different than mine. We have, and to me, that's confidence. That's a lack of confidence. That's a lack of understanding that you belong at the table, simply just because you exist, you belong there, right? And all of those.
It's like the self-belief.
So it is a self-belief.
Yeah.
And then there's that imposter syndrome where I know that I'm absolutely being asked to do and be somebody that I'm not. So, and a lot of people are like, for you, it'd be like having to be in corporate wear. Well, no, that's not true at all. I can absolutely 100% be head to toe, quote unquote, corporate. The thing is, I personally am like a shapeshifter, and I can walk into any room and belong. And
but that's because you've chosen
that is because I choose that, right? And so there's that part of it also, is that it is a choice. So I think that, curiosity is the key to unlocking everything in life, is but hand in hand with that curiosity has to be compassion, to be able to not judge and to remove that self-judgment. But very simply, just like you said, if you're feeling like an imposter, you are. You just
don't mean to be harsh, but no. I find that that's the easiest way if you're feeling like that. And it, again, I think imposter syndrome from a labeling point of view is something that coaches created so they could coach you on how to not feel like an imposter. But if you're feeling that, then there's something in your way of being that isn't aligned with what you would do. And the complexity there, like, let's bring this back to the business side of it, because the complexity there is now like, well, what do I do? Well, I don't know what to do. I've been doing this, right? But this doesn't work. And I know it doesn't work, but I don't know what else to do. Right. And like, again, I'm sure you get this, JenLyn, because from a marketing perspective, most of the people I talk to are like, well, I don't know anything about marketing. So I need you because you know about marketing and I don't know about marketing. And I go, okay, actually, a client of mine did this fun exercise yesterday. We were on a call and we were trying to figure out, like, there were some things about the social media posting that she wasn't feeling was like saying the voice. And so we tried to use Chat GPT, saying like, act as a blah, 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 and an expert in Instagram marketing. Right. How would you take this and turn it into a post? And the interesting bit of that was that she was equally not happy with the result from ChatGPT. So this is actually not an output problem. This is an input problem. And this is kind of the cool thing about the way chat works, is that everybody knows that the value of the prompt is what gets you the value of the answer. And so like, but we can think about that from a prompt, and we can prompt engineer, but we actually need to go one layer back of that and say like, well, how is my energy showing up here? Yes. Because if I'm even looking at this as like, my words aren't right. Yes. Well, what, I mean, honestly, I feel like this is my life's work. Helping people to connect to the fact that their words that they feel need to be said right now are actually the words you need to say, not some kind of chat edited version of what that is. Even if English is your second language, but we can leave that for a different show. But like these inputs of like, how am I feeling about this? Am I creating content because I think I have to create content? Yes. Am I creating this because I'm trying to impress ABC ideal client? Like, why am I doing this? And again, like if you don't know why you're doing a thing, the possibility of that thing being sustainable and specifically scalable for you. Big fat
zero. It absolutely is. And that's where the other part comes in with the fatigue. I hear a specific term a lot that, and for me, that I'm like, no. See, that's not what you have. I have compassion fatigue. No, you don't. What you have is fatigue from pretending that you have compassion in areas that you have actually not created compassion.
That's why you had authentic compassion and you were feeling compassion, you wouldn't feel tired from doing that.
No, it just flows. It's just an overflow, right? And so, you know, it's not compassion fatigue. It is the lack of, but trying to have. And so there's nothing wrong with that. That is a form of imposter syndrome. What it is a signal to you that why do you not have compassion in that area, right? And where is it going to go? It's going to go to your 8-year-old, right? That learned from Aunt Sue that this was, you know, whatever, right? But that is the depth of, in my opinion, what your branding, what your marketing, and what your business ask of you. Because to build a community, to understand the dynamics that come with community, to understand whether or not your employees are happy, whether or not you're building a space for them that does allow them to be seen and heard and understood and ideate and be creative and not have to be 100% all the time, because we don't have to be at 100%, right? Like whatever it is for you. If you want your people to be at 120%, you need to understand how to do that. There's so much about that you need to understand. And all of that is humanity. It's understanding yourself on that deep level. It just is. And for me, I stayed in that place of not doing what I knew needed to be done, trying to honor a partnership and a relationship, a business partnership that I had built and had been in for 6 years. And the last 3 years of it were absolute torture for me, and a lot of arguments for me and my business partner about our butting heads on branding, on marketing, and why things were or were not being successful, and why our women were building these towers of sand that were just being swept away. Well, it's because you swept everything under the rug, just like it had been swept under the rug for their whole lives when it came up, because you handed them 3 questions and said, answer these. Now you got a brand, keep going, you'll figure it out. And there's another way. It doesn't mean that way is wrong. It just means that there's another way. And for me, it had to be birthed. I mean, had to go through that process to where it was so insistent, and so that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do any of the things, because I needed this needed me to create it, right? And so I did.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I want to go to the comments because Marissa has a question about being a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
If a person is a shapeshifter, can you ever be off-brand? I mean, I have my interpretation of that answer. JenLyn?
I think that the answer is yes. Because even as a shapeshifter, or shifting shapes, if I show up in a way that is inauthentic to my feelings that day, or is inauthentic to the arena that I'm stepping into, per se, then you can absolutely still be off brand. As eclectic as my brand is, there are 100% root pieces through every layer of it that anchor it in, that are the pillars, that are the foundation, and that you can see even if you're looking at if you come and look at the root, and then you look at the umbrella, and then if you look through every single different thing, the different podcasts, the different this, the different that, you will see the commonalities. And that.
Ooh, or better question, will you see or will you feel?
Both.
Because I feel like you're a great example of that. From a visual perspective, you are very often visually shape-shifting. And again, I think I just want to dig in here quickly because from a branding perspective, I think often people think that's a logo, right? And that a logo is permanent. And I'm going to create this logo and it's going to be my logo forever.
Yes.
But like there's a lot more people are experiencing about your brand, things that people are feeling about your brand or not feeling about your brand.
Yeah.
That have nothing to do with your logo.
No, it's much more about it is much more about the transformative pieces. So it, on a deep psychological level, doesn't matter what color your logos are. If you peel it all the way back, absolutely. We have certain things that our brains recognize, blah, blah, blah. I stepped out of a branding program about 3 weeks ago that I was considering because this particular person has a ton of experience throughout the years. She uses AI. Everything from the outside appears that, man, she's doing something really different, really cool. And I want to kind of tap into this and see what's going on here. Underneath, all the same shit. She was literally, like slamming into one company that does food for choosing the color blue and not green. Get out of here. There are so many colors of food that are blue, blueberries and, like grapes.
High in antioxidants. That's great.
Like there's all of these things. And so it's like, that is just old belief systems. And I try so very hard, and really I don't have to try hard. It just comes natural to me that what I'm building, it's just kind of like decolonization. I bring the same kind of fortitude to what it is that I'm building, that it does not have any of the pieces that what already exists, and that's important to me. And it may not be important to, to somebody else, but it's important to me that it's something that is truly innovative, because it's not just about being creative. It's about being innovative. Right. And it's also about making sure that those core things if you are meeting people on a fundamental need, letting them be seen, heard, have the space to be themselves, have space to grow and ask questions. And if you can do that from this place of compassion and empathy and true patience and all of those things, Nothing else matters. I could be standing here literally wearing a Jason mask, and still you're going to feel in my presence the same feeling once you get over your own system wrapping around the mask.
Right. Your brain saying, danger, because I saw the movie and that was dangerous in the
Yes.
movie, but we forgot that it's a movie. It has nothing to do with the hockey mask.
And once you remember that, right, you're going to walk away having that feeling. And it is absolutely about that. And I think that that's the biggest transition that we have in the world right now and today, is that everything feels icky because we know the science behind it. We openly we understand all of the little tricks. So don't use the tricks. You don't have to use the tricks anymore. Stop using the tricks. Just show up and be genuine about what it is that you're doing, and about what it is that you're trying to help support other people do. And I get told, a lot too, don't do that. People are going to not come anywhere near you. Thank you. Please. I have everything, every single little bit of everything that's in place is in place for you to be able to make a decision. And that decision is, yes, I want to come closer, or I want to come in and see, or no, I do not, because that saves me all the time in the world, and it saves you all the time in the world, right? So if you get this like, ooh, then I love
fine.
it.
There's nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with me.
Nothing wrong with me.
We are magnetized.
We're just not
right
like and that gets to be great. And getting to that answer of yes or no is much more important to me than pulling somebody right down that funnel into the sale is the answer.
Well, why would you want to go to all the work of pulling someone all the way through the funnel to the point where now all I'm concerned about is like dealing with objections, because I know I haven't gotten the right people into the funnel, right?
Yes, so because when you do, thank you. Because if you do have the right people, you don't have objections. It's the same. I've always said that on a brick and mortar sense, and I know we're wrapping up here, but on a brick and mortar sense, like when I go to buy a pair of shoes, I know that I'm going to buy a pair of shoes because I want to buy a pair of shoes. And if I walk into a store and somebody can help me buy those pair of shoes, then I'm going to allow them to do that, or I'm not. Maybe I know exactly what it is that I need, but I'm there because I want it. And if I get a bad feeling or something, I will turn around and walk out and go to another place to buy those shoes. And it is exactly 100% the same. When somebody wants, we're not we really are not investing in the answer to the problem that we have. We're investing in each other as human beings. When I buy something from you because I believe in you and I believe what it is that you're doing. Do you possibly have an answer to a problem that I have as well? Yes, but that's not why I'm buying from you. I'm investing in you to be able to invest in myself. And I think that's the thing that's not understood, is that's where we are. We are where we are investing into each other on a human level, because entrepreneurism is something that has completely 100% exploded for the autonomy of being able to not have to be under somebody else's rule. But there's a big difference in, are you owning a business or are you owning your job? Because there's a huge difference between those two places. But to me, one of the differentiators is, are you investing in people?
Well, and I think even too, to some degree, like this is the underlying alignment, right? And this is why I put my clients through such a robust discovery process, because I'm like, this is about you investing in me, being able to extrapolate data out of you you've never been able to extrapolate before. So like, I want us to try that on so that you feel that you're confident that I can do that for you, because that's what I'm here to do for you. And that's it's different from the shoes, right? But I always use a refrigerator as an example, right? Because like you can get as many advertisements as you want for a refrigerator. You can go into a shoe store, and if someone tries to sell you a refrigerator, you're going to be like, no, I don't need a refrigerator.
Right.
Until you need a refrigerator. And then I'm going to buy a refrigerator.
Yes.
Let me see what refrigerator fits my space, like is in stock, right? Like blah, blah, blah. It checks these boxes that you've created. Not that I've created as the person who sells the refrigerator.
Right.
And from a sales perspective, this is always true. And then if you roll it up from a marketing perspective, if you're looking at marketing still as the thing that fills your funnel, which we should do an episode on that, actually.
Yeah, we should, right?
Yeah, this sounds like the next panel conversation for sure. But like, what does that mean? You want me to fill your funnel with people who want to buy shoes when you sell refrigerators?
Yeah, no.
That's not the point, right?
No.
My efforts can identify people who are in alignment with me as a person, and then, or business.
Right.
And then when they need a refrigerator, who are they going to choose? They're going to choose me because I'm the one they like, right? And okay, maybe they come to the store and I don't have exactly what they need, right? But I'm the first person they come to, and then I'm the person they ask, and I can give a recommendation. And then guess what? That still is my reputation being built in that person's mind. And marketing, when we are coming at it from the space of aligning with our muchness, right? When we are saying like, this is what I am here to do. Like I am here to solve problems in the marketing arena. Sometimes I'm the answer. Sometimes JenLyn is the answer. Sometimes the answer can be received in a LinkedIn Live conversation.
Absolutely.
This is why the show exists. But the point is that like, I know who I am and what I do. And if you don't need that, that just means I'm selling shoes and you need a refrigerator. Doesn't mean nobody needs shoes. Right. It means you don't need shoes, but I know a really great person who sells refrigerators. So let me recommend them to you, right? And make your life easier. And I just want to like quickly wrap up the conversation about shape-shifting, because Marissa, I think this concept of shape-shifting can be like, there are people who are that, and there are people who are figuring it out, right? So like there is evolution and shape-shifting that happens in that figuring out scenario. So it might be the destination, but it might also be that you are on the journey. And what you're realizing is that in these multiple shapes that you're trying on, that there's components of each of those shapes that are you. And so like, you're still working towards that center that JenLyn talked about right at the beginning, which is like, what is that core of all of this that I am, that I can show up and I can be, and I use this example all the time, right? I can show up and I can be that at a black tie gala, or I can be at the stage in front of 3,000 people, or I can be in a one-on-one, I can be it in the school playground, right? Because that's what being Tracy looks like. And so then I can create business decisions, but also life decisions based on that. I could create, like if you're a founder and you're creating around these things, yes, you can create marketing things, which is what we're talking about in the show, but you can also create business models and new ways of charging people and like new, albeit legal, ways to manage your finances, right? Like there's creativity possible in this business building component. And when we talk about this idea of creating muchness in your brand, the hugest brands on the face of the earth right now were not created the same way as every other huge business, right? Tesla looks completely different than Walt Disney, looks completely different than IBM, looks different than Pepsi, right? Looks different than Apple. And the point is that they all built their thing, their way, based on their muchness.
Right, and for their people that have the same muchness.
Right. And so like, we get distracted by these big companies that have built this way, and then we're like, well, we should build that way because that's how you build in order to get to a big company. But we miss out on this core foundation, which is that they built on top of their muchness.
Yes.
And they chose it and they opted in. And there were people, I'm a huge Disney fan. Like there were people, there's still probably people who think that Walt Disney was crazy for buying a bunch of swampland and being like, I'm gonna turn this into a theme park.
I wrote an article about Snow White in the remake just like 2 weeks ago, because there's this, because Walt Disney's grandson is like, my grandfather's turning over in his grave. No, he's not. He was a trailblazer. Are you kidding me? People thought he was mad. No, they were not. He's clapping. If he's rolling, it's because his claps are reverberating him to roll over. Like it's because he's dancing and celebrating, not because he was sane, quote unquote. Like, please.
Well, and these are, again, like most of these huge businesses are built by geniuses that other people don't understand, right? But we don't appreciate our own genius and say, like, I can build some, and whether you want to build a multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar company, that is up to you, you decide. Right. But like, whatever you're building, like what that could be, the potential for that lives in your muchness.
Yes, it does.
It's not in eliminating your muchness. No. So luckily you have people like myself and JenLyn who are invested in bringing your muchness to life. So that is available.
Absolutely.
And we could talk about muchness all day, but we're not going to. JenLyn, if people are interested in learning more about you and your muchness, maybe tapping into their muchness too, where's the best place for them to find you?
Here on LinkedIn, and it's JenLyn UNBN, and or my website, which is www.muchness.space. So.
And I love that so much because it's the muchness space. You don't even have to think about it. So go there, check it out, connect with JenLyn, who is also tagged in this post on LinkedIn. So you can just click on the highlighted name and it will take you right there.
Ooh,
very convenient. Yes,
beautiful.
Yes. Using our technology to create funnels to connect with people who resonate with you. And I also want to remind you all too, if this concept of creating muchness in your brand is very top of mind for you right now, please don't let this be like a cool conversation you came to hang out in for an hour on a Tuesday. Like let it permeate into your way of being. How do you like connect with me, connect with JenLyn, connect with each other in the chat? We had Joy and Leanna and Marissa and Crystal and Ashif. We had a whole bunch of people. So connect with each other and stay in the conversation. Also, I would say, like, if you're in this place where you're trying to like try on your muchness, right? I mean, it's a skill. It's a skill. So what JenLyn is bringing to the table today, that was built through exposure and practice. And so if you're looking for places to do that, connect with us. We would love to be that space for you. I was a series of networking events called No Pitch Networking, which is also a really great place just to practice that. JenLyn and I have also participated in spaces like the Friendship Bench, which are other great places to practice. So if you're looking for places to practice, connect with us. We have some recommendations, but it is a skill. Skills take practice. So we encourage you to practice. And thank you, Joy, for saying we are the original Dr. Seuss's. I don't know about anybody else, but like I take that as a very, I hold Dr. Seuss in very high regard.
Me too, because he's,
that guy was just like, you think I can't write a book with only 50 words? Challenges.
Accepted.
And he's like, who doesn't? I idolize a guy who just makes up words to fit what he's trying to say. And we all know what he's getting at the end of the day. And like, who is more quotable as far as I'm concerned? Nobody. With that, everybody, thank you for joining us today, JenLyn. Thank you so much for sharing all your fantastic knowledge. Until next time, everybody, permission to do you.
Love that.